launch this one here. So we have Erica Roewade and Liz Houtz, co-founders of Cats in Action. They're going to talk about myth busting, challenging traditional ideas about home. Erica and Liz co-founded the Chicago-based Cats in Action in 2019. They're a sponsor group under the 2007 Cook County Managed Feral Cats Ordinance. Erica and Liz co-administrate Illinois' Barn Cats Facebook and the Chicago Community Cats TNR, the largest community cat Facebook network in the state. And they also co-host a free monthly workshop on Zoom called Helping Cats Near You. So I'm going to turn this over to Erica and Liz.
Thanks so much, Stacy. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming today. Greetings from a very rainy Chicago. It's been raining all day long here, so it's a great day for an online workshop. So I hope lots of people are logging in. So as Stacy mentioned, Erica and I are the co-founders of Cats in Action. And we are a Chicago-based Trap-Neuter-Return organization. And today we're talking about myth busting, which is challenging traditional ideas of home. Well, I'm Liz Houtz. I've been helping outdoor cats for about 12 years now. I started the way most people did. You know, I saw a few cats in my own neighborhood on the north side of Chicago. And one thing led to another. I eventually took a position at the Treehouse Humane Society, which is Chicago's largest cat-only shelter. And I was the Community Cats Program Manager for almost 5 years. I've trapped over 3,500 cats. I've pulled a lot of friendly cats, mostly kittens, off the streets. I've done a lot of feral cat placements, so over 400 placements, probably close to 1,000 cats. That we've placed either in barn cat situations or some urban and suburban working cat situations. I've documented over 70 cat boarding projects in the last 12 years, and I have personally worked from beginning to end about 25, which involves placing each cat safely in an appropriate home. We partner with Chicago Animal Care and Control. There are not many feral cats that come into animal control in Chicago. Occasionally people get creative and figure out ways to catch them and bring them in, and they're, you know, recorded as an owner relinquishment, and they just turn out to be not so friendly. So we make every effort to get them back home or to find an appropriate home for them. And in 2019, Erica and I co-founded Cats in Action as a dedicated resource group for the TNR community in our area. Erica, you may need to unmute yourself.
Yes, I just noticed that. Hi, everyone. I'm Erica. My resume is very similar to Liz's because we met on a volunteer Trap-Neuter-Return project, started at Treehouse about the same time. I eventually left Treehouse to start a shelter-based community cats program at Paw Chicago, which is one of the largest shelters in the city. And I quit counting how many cats I've trapped when I hit 2,500 about a year ago. Liz and I, along with some other people, are highly active in getting feral cats out of city impoundment facilities, including Chicago Animal Control, the Anti-Cruelty Society, etc., and getting them to a safe home.
So Cats in Action has the mission to assist people with comprehensive resources to help free roaming cats. So it's all about enabling people in our community to help the cats in their neighborhood. As Stacy mentioned, we do teach a monthly workshop on the fourth Sunday of every month. It's also via Zoom, and it's fairly ubiquitous. We have people sometimes from different parts of the country that join, which is fantastic. The local resources are kind of at the end. So local, I mean northern Illinois, some parts of southern Wisconsin, and also northwest Indiana, which is very close to Chicago. And details are on our website. So before we get into the meat of the presentation, I think we want to go to the poll questions at this time. So can we do that?
How many cats enter the shelter system on average annually? How many cats enter the shelter system on average annually, you think? 1.5 million, 2.2 million, 3.2 million. And Liz, do you want to share what the answer is?
Yeah, the correct answer is C, which is 3.2 million cats. So it looks like about 42% of our audience got it correct.
All right. Next poll. How many cats are euthanized in shelters annually? 330,000, 430,000, 530,000. So we have here 19% at 330,000, 8% says 430,000, and 73% say 530,000.
And the majority of you got it correct. It's 530,000.
Of cats entering shelters, what percentage are returned to owner? 15.2, 3.1, or 9.7? I think there might have been a tip-off earlier today on that statistic. We'll share the results. And so we have 0% saying 15.2, 93% at 3.1%, and 7% say 9.7.
Yep, that's correct. And I think I did hear that earlier today as well. So thank you for participating in the poll. So the statistics, as you can see, are pretty staggering. You know, there's a lot of cats coming into shelters, and sadly, you know, a lot of them don't make it out. And cats that are owned either by an individual or the community have a very, very low percentage of being reunited. And so, you know, keep those statistics and keep that situation in mind as we go through our presentation, because that's kind of the backdrop of what we're talking about today. You know, we want to challenge additional traditional ideas of home in order to place more cats in homes so that they don't go into shelters and they don't become euthanized. So what we're talking about today, you know, what is home? What's home for a cat? What's home for a friendly cat? What's home for a semi-friendly cat? What's home for a feral cat? And what is an appropriate home? You know, it's all about, you know, making the best decisions that we can for the situation at hand. It's not always a traditional decision. You know, sometimes we need to think outside of the box. You know, there are certainly a lot of studies that show return to field is very successful in reducing euthanasia rates. But a lot of what we're talking about today is kind of more nuanced, and it's largely guided, you know, by the experience that Erica and I have had over the last 11 to 12 years in, you know, placing and working with so many cats.
So myth number one, friendly cats need to be in an indoor house. And we put that in quotes there, obviously, for a reason. There are many alternative living situations where cats do just fine. They're well cared for. They're treated as pets. This is a custom car garage out near Midway Airport, where I recently placed this pair of young male siblings. And this is the owner's girlfriend's daughter, who has named the cats Shadow and Moonlight. These are two that a fellow rescuer trapped and socialized. And this is actually the Ninja Cat Garage. So these black cats fit in quite well with that theme. Really nice guy. He's there every day. The cats are free to roam all over the shop and a little bit outside. And they are put in the office here for the evening every night where they're safe. And the vast majority of animal shelters would never adopt to this wonderful guy if he came into the shelter and said, hey, I'd love to adopt 2 cats for my shop. These are the pictures. This is what I have for them. We believe this needs to change. I placed Venkman, Egon, and Ray at the Empirical Brewery Company in Chicago, where they protect the grain from rodents. They are absolutely doted on. Yes, they are named after the Ghostbusters characters. They held like an online naming contest for the cats. These cats have their own Instagram. They have their own webpage on the brewery website. And as you can see, they are living their best lives here. They are pretty famous. They've been on the news several times. And I know for a fact, because the guys that work there told me that when they first opened up to the public and started doing brewery tours, people were clogging the phone lines saying, I want to sign up for the tour and will we be able to see the cats? So I joke with the guys at the brewery a lot that I kind of helped jumpstart their business over there. Next slide. This is Marco. He lives at Pinwheel Records in Chicago's Pilsen neighborhood. He ran for both mayor and president in recent elections. As you can see, the little pin that he's wearing on his jacket. He's very chill. He loves to interact with the customers. People come by the shop all the time just to see him and check in. He's a wonderful mascot, perfectly safe, and well cared for. Next slide. The kitty on the left I stumbled into one day out in the western suburbs, stopped into a vape shop, and was greeted by this little kitty that the guys behind the counter told me her name was Lexa. And she's very sweet, very robust little kitty, having a great time interacting with people at the shop. Everyone was stopping to pet her. The pair on the right, I love this picture. I call them the Sophisticats. They live at Blue City Bikes in Chicago. It's a bike shop. You know, obviously you wouldn't want to place cats here that are escape focused or cats that don't really love interacting with people and, you know, might potentially scratch a customer or something. But again, most shelters will not adopt cats out to people who want a shop cat, regardless of the scenario, regardless of the care, regardless of the security or anything else. We think that for the right cat, this is an excellent home. Myth number 2, friendly cats should never be outside. This picture, that's me. This was taken during a volunteer trapping project in the Greek islands that I participated in about 5 years ago. These friendly cats live at a gas station. They kind of go inside and, you know, hang around the grounds. Everyone feeds them. Everyone knows them. There's not too many gas stations on this island, so they are well known to everybody. In just about every other country in the world, friendly outdoor cats are widely accepted. Cats love being outside. I think we all know that. It wasn't even until 1946 that cat litter was invented, and cats were made to live exclusively indoors. Many people absolutely adore their outdoor cats. They take very good care of them. They're treated just like pets. It would be a real shame to judge these types of homes as unfit somehow and stuff these cats into cages at shelters and municipal shelters where there are so many truly homeless cats that need help. Like I think I heard a prior speaker today talk about keeping these kinds of cats out of the shelter, because we need to save those spots for cats that are truly at risk, sick, injured, absolutely cannot go back to where they came from.
So myth number 3, feral cats that have only lived inside can't be placed outside. Now, it isn't very often that we find indoor ferals. The most typical scenario that I've come across is hoarding situations. And those are difficult situations to deal with. What we find is that, you know, there's usually a couple older cats in the house. They were the original ones that the person took in, very often from outside with the best of intentions. And sometimes those cats are social, but then as they start to reproduce, and there's more and more and more cats in the house, the individual loses the ability to interact with all of those subsequent cats. And so the younger cats in the house wind up being the ones that are, maybe semi-socialized, but oftentimes very feral. But they've never lived outside. So it's a challenge. We don't have enough of those wonderful shops and warehouses and breweries, that we showed in the beginning of the presentation. Those are great locations, but, they're precious and few. So we've had great success doing, kind of the second best, which is placing cats like this in hobby farms, in horse barns, even a couple working farms, and they have really done very well. They've just really thrived. Like this little kitty that's sitting on top of the hay bale, who's living his best life, having a good time. People love their friendly barn cats. So if these cats that have had some sort of socialization, maybe a little bit, and they're kind of semi-social, if they warm up over time, people are thrilled about that. And if they don't, that's okay too. They do just fine. So, we don't want these cats to be euthanized just because, someone is under the impression that they can never be outside. It's just not the case. So this is a terrible photo, but it's a great story. These two orange tabby cats spent a year and a half under somebody's bed. And it was, someone from the rescue community in Chicago who has a wonderful heart and, acted with the best of intentions. He pulled them off the street when they were probably too old to socialize. They were 3 or 4 months old. Subsequently, the situation they came from, the person moved away. They couldn't go back. There was nothing left for them to go back to. And they had spent a year and a half. Every time he came into the room, they would scurry under the bed. I mean, he literally never saw them. So if you just kind of put yourself in the cat situation here, how do you think they felt? They were likely terrified. They were undoubtedly bored and very stressed out. They're living a life of kind of, avoiding people that come into the house and just feeling, stressed out in captivity. So I convinced him to let me place these cats, and they went to a small horse barn way out about an hour and a half from Chicago. They are now owned by a vet tech who cares for the horses and absolutely dotes on these two cats. And if you look at the picture here, they both have their tails in the air. They go around the barn together and they follow her. They enjoy watching what she's doing, caring for the horses. They have their very own hay barn that's kind of their home base where they can climb on the hay bales, and they are absolutely happy, and she couldn't be happier with them. So these are cats that really didn't spend much time outside at all before being placed in this situation. But just because they had been inside for a year and a half does not mean that they need to stay inside. So who doesn't love a big football-headed kitty? So myth number 4, cats that have FIV or feline leukemia can't go back outside. So I think it is fairly commonplace nowadays that we don't even test cats that are being trapped for TNR. And there's a lot of reasons why. I think some of the prior presenters touched on this. you're going to make a much bigger impact on reducing the population of cats outside if you channel all of your money into spay-neuter and don't spend the money on combo testing. So that's one reason. Another reason is that once you sterilize them, they're not going to be mating anymore, and the incidences of fighting are going to be greatly reduced. And those are the main ways that cats transmit FIV and feline leukemia, also in utero from mama to babies, but of course, if they're not mating, there shouldn't be any kittens. So just in sterilizing them, you're eliminating the ways that these diseases spread. A couple of the clinics in Chicago no longer offer combo tests for feral cats, but one of them does. And so occasionally someone will combo test a feral cat, and then they're a little confused. Oh no, this cat is FIV positive. What do I do now? And we would encourage people, to return the cat outside to the colony where it's most comfortable, and just monitor the cat. If the cat starts losing weight at a subsequent date, if the cat, isn't eating as well as it was, the cat can always be trapped subsequently and go back into the vet at that time, for evaluation, blood panel, whatever you want to do. But as long as a cat is otherwise healthy and has a good body type and, it's regular to a colony, the caretaker's feeding the cat every day, that there's really no reason to hold a cat that is otherwise feral or semi-feral in a captive environment. So they're going to do best outside. So myth number 5 is cats with 3 legs or 1 eye or no teeth can't live outside. I think people create a lot of these scenarios in their minds, like, what's going to happen? A coyote is going to approach from a certain side and the cat can't get away. We have placed many one-eyed cats outside. We've been very fortunate that we have some vets in the area that will do enucleations, the removal of an eye if necessary. That doesn't cost an arm and a leg. We've had a few cats that have required an amputation of a leg, and the tripods do just fine outside. They're amazingly fast. We've had a couple cats that have required full mouth extractions, but these cats are being cared for by people who look after them every day. They're not hunting to survive. They're eating canned cat food. So there's no reason why they can't continue to do that. The number one factor really, in determining whether a cat should, go back to its home or come inside is really the cat's disposition. Is that cat feral? Is it going to be stressed inside? If it's a totally friendly cat, then fine, that's great. But these conditions, as well as several others, it's just not a reason to hold a feral cat indoors. So myth number 6, cats who have lost their shelter need to be relocated. Free-roaming cats very often seek shelter in abandoned buildings, dilapidated garages. We have lots and lots of these in the city. This is a garage in my own neighborhood. It's a little hard to see because it's kind of overgrown with all these weeds here, but the bottom of the door is really water damaged, and there's easy access for cats to go in and out. So we did have a cat that was seeking shelter in this garage for a couple years, and when the home was sold and the caretaker heard that the garage was going to be torn down, she really panicked and thought, oh no, we got to pull this cat off the street. What's going to happen? The cat's not going to have any shelter. It's going to freeze to death, et cetera, et cetera. And caretakers really do tend to panic, with the best of intentions for their kitties. But what we found is that in reality, this isn't the only shelter that the cat has. The cat knows the neighborhood. The cat has other places where it seeks shelter, and it can find other places in the neighborhood. So, instead of expending all of the resources to relocate a cat, which is very time consuming, you have to retrap the cat, it's a lot of transport and holding and setup at a new location. Spend the time and talk to the community. See if some of the neighbors will allow you to put shelters in their yard. I mean, that's a much better option to keep the cat at its home than relocation. So in this particular situation, the cat decided to relocate it herself, and she moved about a block north and joined the colony up there where there's plenty of shelter. And that very often happens. Sometimes the cats will get spooked during the day when the demolition crew or the crew that's cleaning out the garage comes, and the cats scatter. And then in the evening, they return to the area when it gets quiet again. So if there is a situation like this, we encourage people to make sure there are plenty of access points. Pull up the windows, punch out the windows, make some holes in the sides of the garage. It's going to be torn down anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Make sure that you know that there's no small kittens inside that would not be able to get out. But if there aren't, you know what? The cats are going to be just fine. The crew's going to come to tear down the garage. The cats are going to scatter. They're not going to get crushed. They'll be just fine. So myth number 7, cats need to be taught how to hunt by their mother. And I've heard this from several people. If kittens don't learn how to hunt by the time they're 10 weeks old, they need to learn this outside from their mother. Otherwise, they will never know how to hunt. And those cats are not going to be desirable to farmers because they won't do their job. We have not found this to be the case. On the contrary, we feel that hunting is instinctual. Even a house cat that's been inside forever or was even born outside, they're going to hunt out of instinct, and they're going to have a good time doing it. House pets can be very prolific hunters. So this is not a reason to not place a cat in a barn. And sorry to use a double negative there. Cats will hunt just fine. Don't worry about barn placing them.
Okay, myth number 8, something I deal with personally every day because I have focused my rescue career on the south and west sides of Chicago. And you get a lot of hysterical people online and everywhere else saying, oh, you can't put those cats back there. That neighborhood is too dangerous for cats. This is one of Chicago's housing projects. You can the buildings are vacant right now. Residents from a nearby building are feeding a large colony of cats there. Cats don't have the same fears that humans do. They don't monitor crime rates. The last time I checked, cats were not complaining to the news media about getting mugged or carjacked. That kind of stuff, the goings on in the neighborhood, don't affect them. It is a myth that cats in under-resourced neighborhoods do any worse or are at any greater risk or are less cared for and loved than in any other neighborhood. All they know is where home is, their familiar territory, where they have food and shelter. So there is no such thing, and we need to think about what it means, what people are really saying when they say a neighborhood is too dangerous, because we find that to be a bit of a euphemism for saying, oh, the people in certain neighborhoods don't care about these animals. And I can promise you from working 10, 12 years on the far south side of Chicago that it is patently false. That is a myth. Myth number 9. You have to know who the feeder is to return a cat. We didn't know it at the time, but this cat actually has 3 houses in a row that was feeding him. If a cat is healthy, it's got a good body weight, sterilize it, vaccinate it, and return it to where it was found. Don't worry that you don't know exactly who the feeder is and exactly where the cat is sheltering, which garage, etc. There's a study showing that 1 in 14 Americans is feeding outdoor cats. And, that may not be obvious. People do it on the sly a lot. You got to be clever and crafty when you do what we do. And that is, we have been known to peek through fences, looking for telltale bowls, paper plates, looking in garbage cans for cat food cans. These are all, flags that, hey, there's a cat feeder around here. Also, very many times I have found that there's a feeder in the area just by driving by and seeing a very telltale cardboard box with a tarp over it. We all know these signs if you've been out there. So interestingly, the study also showed that 1 in 8 cat owners is feeding cats. So obviously cat owners have a lot of sympathy for the outdoor kitties and feed them at a greater rate than non-cat owners. In Chicago, there are multiple people on every block feeding cats. Liz worked one TNR project where she found 7 feeders on one block. Cats have multiple food sources. They follow each other around from one to the other. And if one source goes away, they easily find another one. We're unfortunately encumbered in Chicago by an ordinance that requires us to only return cats to registered caretakers under the ordinance that we have here. It's unfortunate because we're often prevented from returning cats to the only home they've ever known. Myth number 10, you should never return a cat in winter. You shouldn't trap in winter. You shouldn't do TNR in winter. We hear this a bit. We live in a climate where we've suffered through a couple polar vortexes. I'm not sure, this is a friend of ours in this picture. She's also a trapper. We absolutely love this picture. The contrast just cracks us up. Here are the humans dressed up like Eskimos from the 22nd century, and then the cat's just sort of hanging there like, yo, what's up? Polar vortex? Doesn't matter to me. There is a, contrary to commonly propagated myth, a small patch of shaved fur on the cat's belly that's done at the clinic when they get their neuter is not going to cause a cat to freeze to death. Mating doesn't wait for spring. It starts the 3rd week of January. Kittens born at the end of March are still subject to the freezing temps, and they may not be as lucky. So let's get all of these queens spayed whenever and as quickly as we can. Cats are far more resilient to winter temperatures than we are. They grow thick coats of fur. They find sunshine during the day, and they know where to hunker down at night. Removing a cat from its home is very distressing for cats. They are not, quote unquote, grateful that they are safe and warm, also in quotes. Rather, they're confused and stressed out that they're not home. Put them back, provide shelter. There are millions of ways to provide shelter. If you do a quick Google search online or on our website, you'll see millions of different cheap DIY ways to create a pretty substantive winter shelter for cats.
So myth number 11, you should not return kittens. We are actually required by our Cook County ordinance to remove kittens, although it does not state an age. So there is some discretion there. And I think really in the middle of kitten season, any kittens that are 10 to 12 weeks old or older, if they are super feral, the majority of us are returning them because we're just inundated by so many other younger kittens that we can socialize quickly. So unless kittens have received some socialization outside from their caretaker, and this does happen sometimes, if they are super feral and it's going to take time, it's going to take a foster home, and it's really going to require a lot of effort to socialize those kittens, it's really not the best decision, because those kittens are not only taking up a home from another litter that's younger and will socialize more quickly, they're taking up a home, a foster home, from multiple litters. I mean, it could take, what, 3, 4, 6 months to socialize kittens that are older. In that time period, you can get multiple litters of younger kittens off the street. So it's a matter of just making a better decision for the resources that you have. And it's tough. I remember the first time I returned a 4-month-old kitten, and I felt terrible because the kitten was still, young and cute, etc. But that kitten was so feral, and it would have been miserable inside. And so he thrived in our neighborhood and was here for many years. Yeah, so it's a matter of, making the best choice that you can, and making the best use of the resources in the foster homes that you have.
Myth number 12 is our last myth, and it kind of circles back to everything that we've talked about here and started out with, and that is, oh, there's not public support for friendly cats living in these non-traditional environments, and that, the animal welfare industry knows better than the general public about where cats should live and what kind of homes they should be adopted into. So right here on the right, you can see the very popular Instagram account of One Bike, One World. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Dean Nicholson. He's got a book out, several books, whatever, probably be a movie. He's got 1 million followers, one of the biggest accounts on Instagram. I follow it every day. It makes me happy. He's got an adventure cat here. This cat basically lives in the basket of a bicycle. She goes camping, she goes kayaking, she doesn't live anywhere. Her home is wherever she and Dean are. She's perfectly safe, perfectly cared for. People, the general public, on the contrary, is absolutely fascinated by these cats that live in these non-traditional homes and lifestyles and follow every detail of their lives every day. Here's Bodega Cats of Instagram. Another hugely popular account, one that I follow every day because, again, it makes me happy. This one's got about 500,000 followers. And people from all over the world submit these pictures. This isn't one person just taking pictures and posting them about cats that, living in shops and stores and bodegas around New York. There is massive, huge international and American support for cats that live in stores and cats that live in barns and cats that live in any number of non-traditional homes, other than, someone's house and someone's apartment. A lot of these cats wander in and out of all of these non-traditional homes, outside, inside. And we really want to call attention to the very large divide between public support and shelter adoption policy. We could save more cats. Next. So in conclusion, open your minds to non-traditional homes so you can save more cats. Think about the statistics from the poll. There are a lot of cats out there who need help. They need a place. Open your mind to non-traditional homes. Put yourself in the cat's paws. Cats are creatures of habit with basic needs. Change is hard. Don't project human emotions on cats. Feral cats are not, quote unquote, grateful that you removed them from their home and held them captive in your basement, which somehow a lot of people think is better because there's heat down there. I have been called in to remove cats that are living on the top of pipes in basements for 5 years. We find the majority of resistance to return to home in the way that we're presenting it comes more from within the rescue community than it does the public. Don't let keyboard cowboys and rescue warriors dictate policy or prevent cats from being in their best homes. and living their best lives. Celebrate and publicize your successes. Be open about it. We need to change. Keep getting the word out. And we want to thank everyone for attending this webinar today. Thank you very much. Our contact info is on the next slide. Please email us, text us, whatever, with any questions or any help you need. And check out our website. Thank you very much.
Excellent presentation and perfect timing. Wow, you're so precise. Nice job. Great job. All right, so one topic you did not cover, sort of, because it was a great survey, sort of everything TNR that you were just doing, community cat, TNR, and spay neuter. You were talking about returning ferals. What's your stance with regards to pregnant ferals?
Spay them. Spay them immediately. Do not take them inside. It's a very, very stressful situation for a feral mother cat to be inside for what would likely be 6 to 8 weeks. We have had a couple extenuating circumstances where that had to happen. I would say 2 in 12 years. In one situation, the feral mother was so stressed she wouldn't nurse, and she actually killed one of her babies. It was awful. We had another situation where that didn't happen, but it's not advisable at all if a cat is feral to bring it inside and allow it to give birth. I mean, we highly recommend spay aborting. You know, it's not something anyone really likes to do, but it's the better option that's out there.
And it's another reason to trap in the winter.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Trapping in the winter is much less complicated.
And I mean, I have gone through scenarios where it's been like, you know, pregnant ferals, pregnant semi-ferals, they've busted out of the cage, they've eaten their kittens, or they've tried to eat their kittens, they've gone under the tub, they've gone in the ceiling, they've gone out the window, they've, you know, really, you name it, I've probably seen it or heard about it. Not that I've done it, but I was managing foster homes and that kind of thing. And back in the 90s, in our situation, even though we had a lot of, you know, stuff going on, a lot of population, we did have foster homes that wanted to do pregnant cats. And at that point in time, we didn't know any sort of better. So nowadays in Massachusetts, they, if you have a friendly pregnant cat, many organizations will foster that cat out and have that cat go to term so that they have kittens to adopt out. And there's that balancing act between the 10 to 12 to 14-week-old kittens and using that foster resource for those versus spaying the socialized pregnant female cat. That's a big conversation of trying to figure out where your resources are going to go from an organizational standpoint.
We spay everybody.
Yeah.
Well, but it's not the belief when you're in a kitten-free zone, put it that way. So yeah. It's different. So it's just interesting. Let me go into questions here. Can you say more about myth number 7? Don't mom cats teach kittens to hunt? Would you say she helps hone the instinctive drive to hunt?
I have not noticed that this is even the slightest bit relevant. The mother cat may do that, but that doesn't mean the cat is not going to have that instinct or will not hunt. We have placed many, many, many cats in barns that were born inside and did not learn that, and they are excellent mousers.
Yeah, I mean, if they're true, then I don't know what the Audubon Society is all up with their knickers in a twist about, because they mostly they complain a lot about people's house cats getting out and doing some damage on the migrating birds. When I first started in rescue, there were a bunch of kittens in my yard that I did not know what to do with. And I remember a lot of rats in my alley, lived on the northwest side of the state. And I caught 5-week-old kittens guarding a rat hole. They already knew. They didn't need their mother to teach them really anything. Just a pervasive myth, I think. So, I mean, cats are apex predators. They really are, instinctively.
What do you do if you trap a lactating cat?
So that's a great question. I do not release a cat if it is intact, period. I get that cat to the clinic as soon as possible. I monitor that cat when I get it home, and I try to release it that same night as soon as the anesthesia has worn off and it's safe to do so. I then follow the cat, and the cat usually points us to where the kittens are. We have had many, many situations like this where the kittens were extremely young when we TNR'd the mama cat, and they survived. So I don't know if the entire audience knows this, but lactation is actually controlled by the pituitary gland in the cat's brain and not by the reproductive organs. What that means is once you spay a cat, they can continue to lactate. So they usually point you to where those kittens are, and we have found that even the youngest of kittens has survived. You know, and a lot of times, especially if you don't know where those kittens are, you have no idea, you don't know if they're alive or dead anyway. So at least get that mama cat spayed so she won't have any more.
I will just sort of chime in here with Julie was following up on her question about myth number 7 with the hunting. So she's saying also that's true with the hoarder cats who've never been outside. And I will attest to the fact I relocated some hoarder cats that had been inside. It was a house of 80 cats or whatever, and we relocated some into a barn that we had like a bonded group of 6 of them. And it was actually, we had thrown a couple of extras in from another place in the shelter, but they were bonded in the shelter together. And then we moved them to a barn, and they were great. It was all cool.
Yep.
So it all worked out. Someone here is sharing an experience, found an open carrier on the sidewalk today near a colony feeding station. Suspect a cat abandoned. Advice, rescue it, tips on how to ID it.
Well, I'm not sure what that means, that they found a cat. Did you say in a carrier?
An open carrier. So I think they found an empty carrier. So I think it all depends on how well you know the colony and who is, you know, what cats are supposed to be there, and monitor the situation, I would think. So identifying, basically, I guess she's looking at advice on if you have a dumped cat at your colony, do you TNR it or do you try and rescue it?
Well, I would set a trap and make sure the cat is sterilized as an immediate need. I mean, you can evaluate the cat if you have the resources to get the cat off the street and you feel it truly is a friendly pet that was dumped. Then yeah, there's no reason not to bring the cat inside if it's super friendly. I mean, I'm not of the opinion that abandoned house pets need to live outside. You know, that's not what this is all about. It's about making the best decisions that you can. So sure, if you have the resources and the cat's friendly, you know, definitely pull it in.
Yeah, I mean, it can be stressful for, like in this particular case, where a cat has actually been driven up and dumped into the area of an existing colony. The cat might be kind of frightened by the colony cats. It might not really work. In a lot of situations, friendly, abandoned, lost, stray cats will wander in and join an existing colony, and the cat is accepted by the rest of the cats, and it's everybody's happy. That we see that a lot. But in this case, like a cat just newly dumped out of a house in a strange environment with a bunch of existing colony cats, you'd have to really take a hard look at that situation and say, hey, is this cat perfectly friendly? Let's get it in, get it microchipped, or get it scanned for a chip, and see if it's neutered, get it fixed up, and then I would probably seek shelter admission for that one in this particular case.
I had a situation where I had just finished TNRing a colony of about 10 cats, and I was loading them all into the car. And then I looked over and there was another cat kind of sheepishly walking up, and I went back to the caretaker. I said, who's this? And they said, oh, the neighbors around the corner moved. They left her outside. And the colony cats would chase her away. So she had to wait until everybody else ate and then would go over and get some food. So of course I trapped her, and it turned out she was 10 years old and declawed. So she didn't go back out.
Going back to that question about the lactating mom cat, in terms of the kittens, like how long of a period do those kittens have, or for survival? I mean, is there a time window? I mean, obviously it depends on if it's, if they're week-old kittens versus 5-week-old kittens, your time window is very different, I would think.
You would think, but when we've gone back and done the math, I've been shocked that newborn kittens have survived the time that the mom cat was gone at the clinic. I mean, ideally, sure, they're fed every 2 or 3 hours, but if they're not, that doesn't automatically mean they're going to die. I've been very, very surprised at how young kittens have been that have survived.
We definitely make a policy when we come to a site, if the feeder is there, to interview them extensively. How old do you, when do you think these kittens were born? Like, because, the woman will, or the man will be standing there saying, oh yeah, she's got kittens out there. So we're talking about the cats that we know are lactating or just recently had kittens. And if they say, oh, 3 weeks ago, we're like, let me take her, right? No biggie. Because those cats are going to be robust enough that they can wait, till the late evening when we bring the cat back. They're not going to die. There have been some times, if I'm kind of working on a project going along, where we know that the cat just gave birth like last night or the night before, and I may hold off and come back and get her just a little later. Every situation is different. There's so many nuances. And, that's the problem. We just do the best that we can, make the best decisions. Ultimately, Liz is correct. We want to prioritize getting that female spayed. Kitten mortality is really high. Some statistics say it's upwards of 70% of kittens born to unvaccinated mothers outside aren't going to make it anyway, no matter what we do. Our priority must be to get that queen spayed so that the cycle just doesn't keep going on with her. And more dead kittens and more suffering kittens and more crashing kittens, et cetera. So, yeah, I mean, now on the other hand, when there's an accident, we pick up a cat from the clinic, not an accident, but something we didn't know about, and the vet notes, lactating. Some vets will really help us out and put, postpartum or heavily lactating or something like that. And we didn't know, and we're like, oh, wow, okay, we will just get that cat back ASAP. But, that's in cases where the feeder didn't know, we didn't know, we just do our best. But it is imperative that we get that queen spayed. At all costs, really. I mean, we got to get her done. I think there's another myth that we didn't include on here. It's kind of a common everyday myth, is that you need to hold female cats after surgery longer than overnight. As Liz always points out in detail, the purpose of recovery is to allow the anesthesia to leave the cat's system, not for their neuter to heal up. I mean, it takes something like 2.10 seconds to neuter a male. They get very little anesthesia. Once they're up and alert and standing in their trap or whatever, they're pretty well ready to go out. Females, there is no reason to let a female with an incision after a hysterectomy sit there in a trap on newspaper. Maybe she's peed overnight, but we hear a lot of people saying, oh, you need to hold females for 48 hours or even longer than that. Stress depresses the immune system. Get that cat out the next morning as soon as the anesthesia is worn off and she's up and ready and alert, and let her go run to where she hides and let her stay clean and feel safe and lower that stress level.
Yep, no more than 24 hours for females.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you. That was fantastic. Great questions, folks. Thank you so much, Liz and Erica. Great presentation. You did a fantastic job. And we are